Now here in the studio to further discuss the situation in Egypt is Mark Farha. He's an assistant professor of government at Georgetown University here in Doha. Thank you very much for being with us once again, Mark. This is very worrying, isn't it, the rise of this new group? Are we going to see a rise in militant Islamist movements in the wake of this coup in Egypt? Because they now feel that because the ballot hasn't worked, that it's time to resort to the bullet.
Yes, it looks like that, but I think there are two competing trends here. Bear in mind that in the opposition movement, in the demonstration, the vast majority of the demonstrators were Muslim, of course. So the simplistic narrative of Islam versus secularism does not necessarily hold water. However, that is the line promoted by the Muslim Brotherhood, and increasingly so, and also by more extremist groups such as the group you just mentioned, Ansar al-Sharia, and even more threatening groups, Jamaat al-Islamiyya and others. So these are the two narratives, and it remains to be seen whether the opposition can successfully show that they are not necessarily against Islam, but that this is a false narrative.
It may be a simplistic message, as you say, but we did hear Mohammed Badi, the Guide General of the Muslim Brotherhood, give a very incendiary speech yesterday in Nasser City, where he tried to promote this crisis as you say, the Islamists versus Islam versus the infidels. Do you think that message will resonate with people? And is there a risk when you hear that a COPTIC priest has been killed in the north? Right. Is there a risk today that we could see a sectarian conflict in Egypt?
Yes, I mean, this was the same picture sort of unfolded, if you want, the horror scenario in Iraq, if you remember, in Syria now. That is to say, the fissures of society, the divisions, the sectarian ones, tend to become more prominent in this situation of anarchy. And indeed, sort of this Copts now are being scapegoated together with the secularists and the liberals, and it's very disconcerting to see that. But I would again bear in mind these are extremist fringe groups. They will probably gain power now, but still the vast majority, I think, of Egyptians and Muslims in general do not subscribe to these terrorist groups. The problem is if the state is gone and if anarchy reigns, whoever shouts louder wins. No. And what we've seen now in Egypt is exactly that.
What do you think, Mark, is going to happen to the Muslim Brotherhood now as a movement, with its leader ousted, its leaders being rounded up and arrested? What next for this movement? Do you think they're going to go underground as they did back in the 1970s?
I think they might not even go underground, but I think they might be openly more radical, as we saw yesterday with the speech of Badi. That is a danger as well. I mean, going underground right now might be difficult.
Because they're refusing any form of dialogue so far with the other side.
Yes, they've spurned,
even though the other side has extended a hand for dialogue.
Yes, exactly. They've been recalcitrant in that sense, and it doesn't seem that will change in any form. And this polarization is very worrisome because it can lead to something akin to a civil war.
For other countries that are undergoing change right now in the Arab world, what lessons do you think can be drawn from what's happened in Egypt over the last 2 years and over the last few days?
Yeah, I think there should be mutual lessons, in fact. Egypt should also see what happened in Iraq, what happened in Syria, and be wary that they do not fall into that same trap of internal division and, say, an Arab suicide of sorts of the state. And I think we've seen a lot of that in the wake of this Arab Spring, so much euphoria, but in the end, what the fruits were very sort of dismal sectarian bloodshed. So I think the Egyptians now should be aware that this is not the path to go down. Of course, again, I would just reiterate, there's a vicious cycle here. You have religious extremism, which is leading to demonstrations on the street, which is leading to paralysis, which is leading to economic collapse, which is again reinforcing extremism. So there's a vicious cycle here which needs to be broken.
Okay, Mark, thank you very much for your views. Mark Farha, Assistant Professor of Government at Georgetown University here in Doha. Thanks for your time.